Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Eons of Battle. We've got the first big Warhammer show-off of 2025. They're getting things started early this year, and oh, they showed some neat stuff. We already got the Krieg kind of out of the way, so now we can move into some of the other fun things happening in Warhammer. And oh, they showed off a lot of goodies in this one. First up, one thing I didn't even expect this. We got some Age of Sigmar expansion for the old vampires, the Soulblot Bleeplops, the Soulblight Gravelords. One thing that I've never, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the Death Rattle Skeleton, but I don't love them as much as everybody else loves them. But they got a ton of love, and they have a Spearhead coming, which is very, very interesting because I love the game mode Spearhead. But like between me and my buddies, we have most of the Spearheads in the game, and actually, they recently got updated, so some of the poorly performing teams were made a little bit better, and some of the top performing teams, like my Ogres, got just a little bit worse. But I really like that they're keeping the game balanced because the game is pretty darn tight. And so I think it just needs a little bit of finagling to be a little bit better. But I'm really excited for the new Death Rattle box because it's another Spearhead, and it is some incredibly good looking skeletons. Oh, skeleton on a horse, the Right King on skeletal steed. And he's very, very skeletal. This looks like a very, very spindly miniature. You don't want to be wearing corded headphones around this sucker because you're gonna whip him across the table. Oh, I like his little moon-shaped like axe dagger thing. He looks so good with the verdigris and the armor and the bones. And he actually does look a lot like the original Right King, which is a miniature that like, it's an old plastic miniature, but it's still got legs. I mean, he's standing, he's not on a horse, but he has like, he's been in so many paint competitions and Golden Demons. It's a really, really fantastic miniature. And it probably doesn't need an update like some of these other things needed updates. Ooh, the Curse Blades of the Barrow Kingdom are as resilient as they are lethal. We got some like advanced Death Rattle skeletons. Death Rattle skeletons are pretty darn puny, but it's fun that there's some slightly better Death Rattle skeletons. It's kind of like in an RTS when you unlock the next tech tree and then you can buy the upgrade for your troopers and your basic bad troopers just get a little bit tougher and stronger. That's what these Death Rattles are like. And they do look a little bit like they're a little bit more firm on their feet. They're holding their weapons a little bit better. They're not kind of, half of them are like falling over a little bit. These guys are really, really cool. Oh, and the Death Rattle horsies. When they showed off the silhouettes in the previews, I thought it was going to be the old skeletons, like the Tomb King skeletons from old Warhammer Fantasy Battles when they were, boy, they were some rough old figures, but these are really nice. The only thing that's a little silly still is the very skeletal horse necks are really, really skinny, and they kind of remind me of the baby from Eraserhead, but they do look really, really good. But the real star of the show is the new zombie dragon. This might be the greatest glow up in all of Warhammer history. The old model is classic and fine, but man, was it old. It was a bone dragon that was 99% bone, like 1% awkward flesh just stuck in places. This is a zombie dragon with a vampire on top and the biggest lance that anyone's ever seen. Oh, it looks so good. He's still got a tactical rock, but unlike the old model that had a really awkward, smooth tactical boulder, he's got a good chunk of castle. Even his wings are like ripped up in the same way that the old miniatures wings were ripped up. But here it actually sells as just old decaying wings, as the old one was like weird zebra wings. These are, it's so good. And the Vampire Lord looks so good on top. I really like the vampires. I don't think this is possible really in Age of Sigmar, or I think you can do it, but it would be so bad in the game that you would never do it. But I kind of do want to make a vampire army that's just all the different heroes. And this is another good vampire hero on a big, beautiful dragon. And then vampire on an undead horsey. It's just, it's really good. Why does Age of Sigmar stuff look really, really, really good? Maybe it's just because Age of Sigmar, a lot of that stuff came from Warhammer Fantasy Battles, which is like 20-year-old sculpts, 30-year-old sculpts, and now we're getting the best of the best of the best for Age of Sigmar with like the top-notch sculpting. It's pretty wild. Oh, the soul blop bleep blops. What's Liqerise, Mother of Nightmares? That vampire mini, the creepy centaur lady. Oh, it's all really, really good. Age of Sigmar is looking really, really fun moving forward. But now we've got some Black Library novel characters in the good old-fashioned Minkalesque. I think I started her book and I didn't finish it, but her models look amazing. I mean, Minkalesque looks great, but I really like the Commissar who looks very meek and very frail. And he's got like his arms tucked behind his back and his little skirt is flowing in the breeze. And he's got his little power axe tucked behind him. Aww, that Commissar just needs a hug. And the priest with the flag and just guy with melt-a-gun. Just a good old-fashioned guy with a melt-a-gun. These are some really, really fun 40k minis. And if you scroll down just a little bit to another book that is getting a special edition, Shadow of Cain, we've got a very nice looking Daughter of Cain assassin. They went pretty hard on the eyeballs of this paint job. I think the mini looks great, but man, giving her some crazy eyeliner and then really, really prominent eyeballs is probably not the move for this character. I think soften that face a little bit, leave it a little bit more in shadow, and I don't know, maybe give her... Do the Daughters of Cain have any like face tattooing? I might be leaning into my Dark Eldar witch knowledge because the gladiators of the Dark Eldar are very, very similar to the gladiators of the Daughters of Cain. I actually am working on kit bashing some Daughters of Cain into witches for 40k right now. But yeah, this mini looks great. We just saw a whole bunch of beautiful fantasy miniatures, and so now they're re-releasing the Battalion of Arcane Journal, the High Elves. The High Elves are fine. These are old models. The sculpting on them is adorable. There is something very fun about them when they're all ranked up and they look good together. I remember them from the old Isle of Blood box for, I think that was the last starter set that you could get for Warhammer Fantasy Battles. There's a little something to them, but I think they look a lot better when they're getting massacred by the Skaven, because the Skaven are just so cool. These guys are fine. Their new battle box is interesting. They're not the dwarves, which are my favorite of the old Warhammer Fantasy Battles factions. Oh, and they're bringing back all of the different things. Ooh, one model that I've always kind of loved is the flying chariot being pulled by a giant hawk. It's a really, really bizarre miniature, but I kind of love it. Man, is it a silly looking thing. Returning plastic miniature. It's so bizarre. I remember I saw one of these on eBay once and I didn't believe that it was a 40k mini. I thought it might have been like a Mantic or something else, or maybe it was like a really, really cool conversion from back in the day. No, it is a genuine model, a little bathtub being pulled by a hawk. I'm sure there's great lore surrounding it, but it's hilarious and I love it. Oh, the elves. They are kind of a lovingly finished faction. They have a ton of different units and a ton of different kind of looks. I'm sure there's a ton of lore about the different factions within the elves that you can base your army off of. They're fine. They're neat. They don't Jimmy all my jams and they don't flim all my flams, but I might have to figure out some kind of a way to get the Hawk Chariot into some kind of a 40k mini. But speaking of 40k, and specifically a faction that I actually play, we got a new Death Guard guy. This guy got leaked. Actually, I think the sprue of this guy got leaked somehow. It's really hard to believe that Games Workshop might accidentally let a sprue loose into the wild, and so there's always like a little bit of a conspiracy that they purposely leak stuff. I don't know, it is really weird, but I do appreciate that somebody on Reddit took the sprue and then digitally cut out the bits and then put it together and digitally recreated what the model might look like. But this guy is just awesome. He is another lord. He's the Lord of Poxes. He actually is reasonably well put together. Like, he's not as grotesque and inflated as a lot of the other characters are. He's just a classic Mark III Marine with a really fun big backpack. He's got the giant Executioner's blade with an incredibly good rust paint job on that blade. Dang. I always wonder, like, how hard are the 40K painters allowed to go? Because a lot of miniatures seem like, yeah, that is just really crispy, clean, heavy metal paint job. And then this guy's blade is like golden demon perfection on the rust. Man, that looks good. In the article, it teases that he is going to provide clouds of corrosive vapor that ignore the laws of nature to spread and seek new victims to infect. The photofog also has the added benefit of occluding the Death Guard's lumbering advance. So he might give stealth to the squad of Death Guard that he's attached to. That's pretty good, although the Grotmist attachment just gives all Death Guard infantry stealth, so maybe it won't synergize super well with that particular detachment. I guess it could also give them benefit of cover, which stealth plus benefit of cover is not too shabby, especially on the Death Guard, because they're already pretty darn survivable with their feel no pains. He does look really, really good. In a perfect world for me, I think that this guy gives the unit he's attached to fights first, kind of like the Judiciar for the Black Templars, or for any chapter of Space Marines. Fights first is a pretty wickedly good ability, and it's really fun to give it to a big brick of Space Marines, because then it's like, yeah, you either have to shoot me dead, or I win. There's no way to fight me in close combat. I basically automatically win. So you have to figure out a way to shoot me. Oh, and Death Guard can fit in a Rhino. So you have to shoot dead the Rhino first before you can get to the juicy Death Guard inside. I really hope that that's what they're getting at with that big, beautiful sword. This mini is really good. I need to get on my Death Guard. I've got 1,000 points, but it's a really ramshackle 1,000 points because I got Morty and a couple of vehicles and the folded bloat drones. This guy, I do want to do just a ton of just boys, just good old Plague Boys. But speaking of boys, I thought they were going to show off Fabius Bile, and they absolutely did show off Fabulous Bill, but they showed off everything. They showed off everything for the Emperor's Children. I'm pretty sure they showed off everything. There's a little tiny paragraph at the bottom of this page that you could read it as a tease for more to come, or you could read it as just they're saying not everything is going to be available for purchase at launch. But Fabulous Bill is incredible. The old miniature was actually pretty good. I liked how happy he looked. Everyone hates this guy and wants to murder him because he's apparently like the greatest swordsman in the history of Warhammer 40,000. And so Lilith Hesperex of the Dark Eldar has made it her mission to murder this guy because he's the most unkillable thing in the Warhammer galaxy at this moment. And so she really wants to kill him. And it's a sentiment shared by most every character in Warhammer 40,000, but he probably will never die. It'll be interesting to see how his rules get a shakeup. Because right now, I think he gets to come back to life. No, it's really awkward come back to life because upon death, he deals a bunch of mortal wounds to the enemy. And if those mortal wounds cause an enemy miniature to go down, then he resurrects with, I think, half his wounds remaining. So it's a really awkward way for that rule to be written. I wonder if it's going to become a little bit more like Tracing the Infinite's comeback rule, where you can just replace another similar hero with this miniature at half wounds remaining. Just something a little bit easier to trigger. But yeah, Fabulous Bill looks absolutely fabulous. He's very wasp-waisted. He's got his fun little flail that starts as the tongues of his shoulder pad, because whose shoulder pad doesn't have tongues? And then it travels down his arm and then spins out around his body. I love the pearlescent shininess of his blade and how it kind of has like a fencing saber handle. I like his little poisons or combat drugs that are on his backpack. He's just really, really good. It's a really, really fun new miniature. He looks great. And so I thought this would be it for the Emperor's Children. I thought we were going to get a little tease with Fabulous Bill, and then we were going to have to wait on more to come because it kept seeming like, they're showing off and showing off and showing off like renderings and weird whisperings. And so I thought we were going to wait longer on the full range reveal. Nope, we got the range reveal. And first thing up is just a Lord. The Lord Exultant, a sadistic strategist who delights in proving their tactical superiority by weaving complex battle plans across a war-torn world, like an artisan painting a masterpiece. One thing I really like about this guy, and is kind of unique, is he is just a generic hero for the Emperor's Children. He's got bits. He's got all sorts of options. He can have a power fist and like a mega melee weapon and a fun head with a top knot. He can also have a whip and it looks like a hand flamer, and he can have a plasma pistol and just a generic power sword. I mean, a fancy power sword, but a fairly generic power sword. Like all the Death Guard characters are one and done, like single sculpts, but this guy, he's got options like he's a regular old Chaos Lord, which is perfect. Like they should always do that. They should always give us the most possible numbers of options and bits. Although I think probably the option you're gonna go with is Power Fist and Super Weapon. Especially if you can get extra attacks on one of those profiles. If you can't get extra attacks, then probably throw on some kind of a close combat or a ranged weapon, but he looks absolutely phenomenal. He's just the right amount of like Baroque and fancy meets generic enough that you can have a little bit of fun kit bashing and converting this guy to be your warband's mega hero. A very like a self-insert character, the character that you do in the creation process at the start of the video game. When you're talking with Doc Mitchell, this is the character that you create so that you can head off into the wasteland. He looks really, really good. And I see like one of these weapons is clearly a sonic weapon, so I'm sure he's gonna be able to attach to the Noise Marines, but he's also got some close combat weapons, so that might be a little bit of a foretelling of things to come because we got some other units. A brand spanking new unit for the Thousand Sons, Tormentors and Infractors. This is basically just regular Chaos Space Marines, but specifically made for the Emperor's Children, and they're fantastic. Infractors are just Chaos Space Marines with essentially chainsword and bolt pistol, except for instead of chainswords, they have fancy dancy little combat knives, and I guess essentially combat swords. And they have the cutest Widow bolt pistols. I don't know why, their bolt pistols look really, really small to me. They're little in their cute Widow hands. I think it does look really, really good. They've got a really, really nice, Mark IV armor kind of vibe going on to them. They look tall. Those legs look long. So I hope that they're gonna be a similar height to like Primaris Marines, maybe just a little bit shorter so they don't look super big next to the regular Chaos Space Marines. But I do think that they look really, really nice. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of rules they get because regular, not Crusaders, Legionaries. Legionaries are just a really, really nice Space Marine or a Chaos Space Marine unit. They get to reroll hits, or they get to reroll wounds for attacking enemies on objectives. They can take Dark Pacts, and so they can have lethal or sustained hits. They have just really good Space Marine profiles on all of their stuff. Like they're just an overall super solid unit. So it'll be really interesting to see how the Emperor's Children version of this unit is gonna function in game. Because yeah, the Tormentors are just your classic bolter wielding bad boys. It is really nice to see like a Chaos Space Marine kit specifically made for the Emperor's Children. That hasn't really happened. I guess Rubric Marines have Rubric Marines, Khorne Berserkers are for Khorne, Poxwalkers, or no, Death Guard are for the Death Guard Marines. And then like classic Chaos Space Marines can just kind of fit in anywhere as just a more generic version of Chaos Space Marines. But these guys kind of seemingly replace that in an Emperor's Children army. And so I really can't wait to see what kind of rules these guys are going to be paired with to make them feel a little bit different, because I would assume you'll be able to take Legionaries. Although things could be completely different, because I've always been thinking about Emperor's Children as you take Fabius Bile and then you take like the way Emperor's Children work currently is they are just a really weird version of taking generic Chaos Space Marines, in that you can kind of have some unique characters and you must take Slaanesh things if you have the option to take Slaanesh things. But now they're going to be a completely separate faction, just like the Death Guard or the World Eaters are. So it's gonna be a whole new world. But speaking of a whole new world, we got Noise Marines. We got real Noise Marines. For the longest time, there has been the horrible resin Noise Marine Sonic Blaster upgrade frame that I really hope nobody ever bought. It was probably cool 20 years ago when it was metal and it fit decently on the old school Chaos Space Marine kit, but it didn't even fit on the modern Legionaries kits. And yet they were still selling it on the web store. And so I'm sure tons of people got that and then hopefully complained to Games Workshop saying the kit doesn't work. And then Games Workshop would have had to respond saying, yeah, it was made for a completely different plastic kit. Good luck on getting those arms to fit on there. Now we've got real Noise Marines, and there's a couple of really interesting things going on. Number one, the Sonic Blasters look absolutely phenomenal. All of the guys look phenomenal. I love their speakers. The ball exhausts of their backpacks are the speakers. They look really, really good. I love their dick towels and their sonic guns. And what really jumped out at me immediately is that there's 6 guys. And that's kind of unheard of for 40K. And so I was thinking like, oh, is this 2 squads of 3? No, this is a full squad, or this is a squad of 6. And 6 is actually a really nice breakpoint in 40K because the benefit of having smaller squads is the enemy might have weapons that have the blast keyword, and blast keyword gives your opponent extra shots for every 5 models in the squad that you're shooting at. And so this is 6 guys, and so you're giving them 1 extra shot, but you're not giving them 2 for 10. Sometimes this works out really nicely with Death Guard, who can be taken in squads of 7, but I can't really think of another unit that can be taken in squads of 6 at base. Usually a lot of things come in squads of 3 and then you can reinforce them to a squad of 6, but just 6 guys right off the jump is a really, really interesting number because typically, like, if you accidentally get caught out, you'll lose a guy or 2, and having 4 or 5 leftover guys is a lot better than having 3 or 4 leftover guys. You still have a good chunk of that squad surviving. Oh, these guys are glorious. And reading the profiles, like the current profiles of the Noise Marine, which is almost certain to change, they're fine. They're regular Chaos Space Marines with bolters that can shoot just a little bit better. I did the math on them yesterday, and I think they averaged out to like 2 dead intercessors in a turn of shooting. But if they can get just a little bit better, because they have a lot of good stuff going for them. They have an awful lot of shots. I think they have assault on all of their weapons so they can move and shoot, or they can advance and shoot. I was just thinking they just need a little something to make them really good. There is now a Noise Marine character that can almost certainly lead them. The Lord Cacophonist. Ah, this is brand spanking new for Warhammer 40,000. I have no idea what he's gonna be able to do, but I'm sure it's something fun. Oh, maybe he'll give him like +1 AP because he lets them turn the volume up to 11 on their Noise Marine guns. He's double wielding the noise pistols, and he's got the craziest backpack of all time. I love that there's tubes like running into the backpack. Like, is he himself like providing the air for his backpack noisemaker? What kind of a weird chaotic instrument has this guy got going on? I'm honestly kind of more excited to see this guy's profile than I am to see Fulgrim's profile, because Fulgrim's gonna be good. He's gonna be fine. I'm a little bit burnt out on the Primarchs because I keep fighting them in the actual tabletop game, and they're just good. Like, they're just excellent, but they do die. They make for like a really stressful turn 1 and 2, and then usually they're wiped off the board. And then if I'm fighting World Eaters, then Angry Ron has a really good chance of coming back to life, which should not be allowed. It's really, really frustrating. But the little troopers, those are the spice. Those are like the real taste of a faction and are really, really fun to battle against and with. Oh, I can't wait to give these guys a try on the tabletop. And that's not even it. There's one more little thing, and that is the Flawless Blades. These guys are essentially what are they called? Buddies of the chapter, heroes of the storm. Inner Circle Companions. The Inner Circle Companions for the Emperor's Swords Dark Angels. I'm getting all my 40k terminology mixed up, but its Inner Circle Companions are 3 really good Space Marine bodies with some power swords that can be bodyguards for a hero. This looks to be a very similar unit, obviously playing off of the Palanite blades from the old 30k range. Their heads are a little weird, but I'm here for it. These heads look like they actually fit in the Dark Eldar helmets. I don't know why Dark Eldar helmets are shaped like that, but these heads would actually fill up the space in those helmets really, really nicely. I don't know if they have extra brains for extra smartness, or I don't know why they have giant cheese heads. They're kind of fun, but I think they look great. They've got these big, beautiful blades and this really, really interesting armor. I think they would look really, really good around one of these new Chaos Lords. I'm sure they're just gonna have some excellent rules if you can give these guys fights first, which feels very Slaanesh-y. I mean, a lot of the Demonette characters, or one of the Demonette characters that you probably take 3 of in game, can grant you fights first. So there's definitely something about the Emperor's Children that they want to fight you. Although that does step on the toes of World Eaters a little bit because they just want to unga bunga charge you. So hopefully they'll come up with some kind of a way where they're not just, turn 1 alpha charge fighting you. They're doing something a little bit more clever with just the right amount of combat, or I don't know. I've been playing Hedonites of Slaanesh in Age of Sigmar in Spearhead, and they have a really interesting ability where I can tempt my opponent. Every turn I have a pool of 6 temptation dice, and so every time my opponent fails something, they're like, oh, rats, I failed this saving throw. I can be like, do you want an automatic 6 success? And then if they take it, then my army gets a little bit better. And if they don't take it, their army takes more mortal wounds. So they kind of have to take the dice, unless you're Sean and he never accepts my dice. He just takes the wounds just because it makes me sad. But maybe they'll have some sort of an army rule like that with a lot of fun play between you and your opponent to let your army just get a little bit better. And it's almost like an off-board effect, a gentlemanly wager. I can see some really, really fun rules like that to make the game really, really interesting and feel very different from World Eaters, which is just charge Angron in and just rip and tear. A lot of these glorious goodies are going to be wrapped up in the Champions of Slaanesh army box, which looks really good. It's 2 squads of Noise Marines and then 2 squads of these new Chaos Marines. So you can build 10 of them as Bolter Boys and 10 of them as Tiny Bolt Pistol and Sword Boys. And then you got the Lord Exuberant or Exultant or Lord Slaanesh-y. It looks like a really, really nice box. It's gonna be expensive because it's got the codex and the cards are bad. I mean, the cards aren't bad, but they're not worth money. And arguably the codex isn't either. It does have the cool old art on there, but I wonder what kind of price point this box is gonna be at, because I kind of do like Slaanesh. Although Sean also likes Slaanesh, so we might have to fist fight over who gets to play Slaanesh or not. Or maybe we'll just both play Slaanesh and we'll enter a doubles tournament so that we can just be the Chaos Slaanesh faction. I don't know, we'll see what happens. But these models are really, really fun. They're getting my painting juices flowing. Honestly, don't care about Fulgrim that much. He looks great. And I don't like putting all my 40k eggs in one big Primarch basket, because then my basket gets shot off the board and I feel like I already lost the game in turn 2 and we still have 2 hours of this game left. I just want to roll some dice. I kind of want to roll some really nice Eons of Battle dice. EonsOfBattle.com is the place to find our new merch, like our Nick and Jay dice. Maybe one day we'll make a Sean dice, who knows? In addition to merch, EonsOfBattle.com is the best way to support us doing what we do with a membership. Each month, members will get a credit that they can use on a new monthly terrain pack or any previous pack we have ever made. For the month of January, we made The Fall, Part 2, Guns, Big Guns. This set focuses on printable high-caliber ordnance ready to rock a battlefield. This set features the enormous battle cannon, a building-sized gun encased in a Gothic shrine for sending 100-pound shells into orbit, the Sun Cannon, an energy turret for throwing hot balls of glowing energy across the landscape, and the Humble Field Artillery for mopping up whatever's left. This set perfectly complements the Fall buildings and is the second of 3 sets focused on getting a proper 40k board up and running as easily as possible. Let me know in the comments below what have Games Workshop shown off this week that has got you most excited. I'm really kind of pumped about that Death Guard guy because I just want some more rules for my Death Guard. And the Emperor's Children is gonna be really, really fun. I have been going hard on 40K. I have read almost every codex and index, and so I'm really excited to get a brand new one to page through. Thanks for watching.